Good evening, troops. Thank you once again for joining me here at Bert's Books. Tonight I am going to be discussing a bit of an oddity, a bit of a genre splice. This time I'm going to be talking to you about Panzer Spirit, which you might think that might be the name of a 1941 propaganda film. No, well, it might be, but it's also the name of a mid-80s novel by Townsend, which I think might not have come out in Britain. It might only be in the States. But anyway, you can say that the covers, believe it or not, this was remaindered. Who'd have thought this title was remaindered at some point and was going out for $1.49. It goes for a bit more than that now, as I found to my cost. But was it worth it? So as you might be able to tell from this cover art here, Panzer Spirit, I suppose you could lump it in with that rather niche genre of supernatural Nazi stuff. Now, rather than being a Nazi zombie book, it's not a Nazi zombie story in the vein of Dead Snow, those kind of things. There are a few Nazi zombie films going back quite a few years, I believe. Also, I think there's a film called The Nazi Golden Vampire. I've never seen that. But anyway, I suppose horror writers, whether for film or in this case novel, found it tempting to dig into that area of that particular time of history in which the flakier, I suppose, exponents of National Socialism were delving into all strange areas of the occult. I think writers find this quite tempting to kind of delve into and exaggerate. Now, it would appear that the banality of evil is too banal for a horror audience, and therefore the need to exploit that very flaky area. You know, that or the maybe there's some crossover, the perverted science aspect of it, which I suppose you could say explains something like Iron Sky. This title concerns neither zombies nor Nazi spacemen. This book concerns a demon tank. It's the story of, and they've got the cover art wrong in that aspect. Never start a war bore on these technical things. It concerns a particular very rare model of, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, Jadgpanther. It might be Jadgpanther, I'm not even sure. It certainly isn't as we used to pronounce it when we first bought the model kits as kids. It's not a Jadgpanther, I don't think. I'm going to go with Jadgpanther, but if I'm wrong, sorry. Now, this is no ordinary tank destroyer. This, like I say, it's a particular rare model of Jadgpanther. This one has the unusual quality of, I suppose, being possessed. It kind of has a life of its own. I don't quite understand how this animated, self-maintaining tank, it sits from 1945 to about, whatever this is set in, about 1985. It sits all those years inert. It suddenly chooses to activate in 1985. I mean, it's not a terribly original concept in certain ways. You know, the Christine immediately comes to mind. It's like, imagine a Krupp steel Christine, or even, I would go further, I would say it's a Krupp steel Killdozer. This Hulk has been sitting apparently inert in a bit of German countryside for many years, but then the landowner, I think he's a farmer, he decides that he's going to sell this bit of land to the US military in order for them to be able to perform their tank exercises on this land. The appearance of American military hardware within this Jadgpanther's gun sights activates it. It glows blue, and mysteriously it's able to pump a shell into this 80s period American tank. How is it able to do this? We kind of go into the weird mystic science crossover aspect of this as we go through the story. This tank is, of course, the product of the lunatic dabblings of German mystics and German scientists during the Second World War. I'm not sure where the line, crosses between the two, but the tank is able to self-maintain and to go on the rampage that it performs within these pages, because it's made out of old mystical elf metal. When it's first discovered, when the American military realised that this thing has still had a shell in the breech and put it into one of their tanks, the Jadgpanther kind of it doesn't overplay its hand at this point. It allows itself to be loaded onto a lorry and carted off to an American base that has a military museum on its grounds, where it it arouses a great deal of interest, because there aren't that many Jadgpanthers in existence. There's one down, where is it? There's one in Duxford. I don't know. There's not that many in real life. There aren't that many, because they only made about 500 or 400 of them anyway. Don't include the special mystic ones. This thing, it's while it's in the museum, it just so happens, right, one of the guys working in this museum is an old German ex-technician from the Second World War who's familiar with the workings of tanks. He's kind of retirement age by this time, but he's seen this tank before, and he even knows the name of the commander, because the commander, unusually for a German tank, I don't think anyone ever did this in real life, that the commander had etched his name proudly along the side of just below the turret or the cupola or whatever they call it. Naturally, of course it's a fucking SS tank, right? It goes without saying. So the commander of this tank was this arsehole of an uber-Nazi SS cunt, right? And Rudy, the technician at the museum, remembers this incident of this tank drawing up sometime in late 1944 or 1945. It draws up in the street in a German town where a kiosk happens to be selling beer, hot dogs and beer, or maybe just beer, by the roadside, and von Norden, right, he tries to jump the queue, proper comic book Nazi style. He goes swaggering out and tries to jump the queue. The guy isn't having it, right? So von Norden jumps back in his tank. This is what gets me, that this type of fiction, it kind of has to invent. Are they not evil enough? The guy machine guns the beer kiosk, right? Oh, no, come on. So, okay, this establishes von Norden as a particularly evil bastard, but no one's sure what's happened to him. No one can trace him. So the events at the museum, this thing, of course, is still active and sensory and everything. So it as soon as it susses anybody is a threat to it, as Rudy presents, it either shoots them or squashes them. So this arouses the interest of, what's the guy's name? I forget his name, but he's called in. He's like this a military consultant guy he's called in to try and unravel the mystery of this thing. And of course they can't get the hatches open to save their lives on this thing. So the more the chap looks into the history of it, he's one of the clues is that on the glassy plate, the front plate, the German divisions had this heraldic, these kind of little emblems that they would paint on the front, divisional signs. Maybe there was some slight mystic significance to some of them, but this one's a particularly unusual one. It's this kind of evil goblin looking thing. So this, they look back into the mythology of this, and they have to engage the services of a lady called Sherry, who's a kind of, mystical elf person. Yeah. And so the story of this tank was that it was part of some ultra secret Nazi project where they delved into the mythological area of elf metallurgy, and they build this vehicle using this. They locate the ancient elf mine and produce the materials to make this unconquerable tank. Now, I get the impression Tom Townsend, as far as the military history area of it and tanks and so on, I think he's someone who does know his stuff. I think he knows he's got some background in this area, and I don't know. I haven't brought myself yet to finish it. I'm there, and I'm kind of all right. I think I'll probably guess how the last few pages go. Townsend, given the silliness of the premise, Townsend sort of does quite an okay job in constructing something around that, but the problem is it's on just such daft foundations. So it's a bit of an oddity. It's kind of a, I've covered war pulps before. Sven Hassel and Leo Kessler and these things. It's kind of this odd halfway house between your more usual 80s horror paperback and then that kind of Second World War area. It's pretty much a curiosity piece. I wouldn't say it was an essential, I wouldn't say it was essential to anybody's reading list, but, it's, if you fancy it, I think I paid about 20 quid for it, so it's kind of in that area of, it's obviously going above the $1.49 bracket. If the crossover between World War II hardware and batshit mysticism sounds appealing, it's there.